Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today I was having a conversation with the homies on Discord, and they basically convinced me to become a Watch Mojo fan channel. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna start sending all of my best top 10 video ideas to you in video format, as I do now twice a day. So here we are with the first in what it will be, probably by the end, way too many top 10 lists. The top 10 biggest or most important disappointments in Marvel Future Fight of 2021. Now, we still have a couple of weeks to go in the year, so maybe there's a disappointment waiting for us around the corner, but I, for one, am optimistic, and generally speaking, this video was hard to make because there have been so many anti-disappointments. There have been so many good moments in Marvel Future Fight this year. Honestly, I think this is one of the best years ever for the game for multiple reasons. And basically some of the disappointments, spoiler alert, are going to be things that we got that I just want to get more of. And as always, it's just my personal list of top 10 disappointments, so you can hit me up in the comments down below with your list of top 10 disappointments. But coming up at number 10, in my opinion, is not enough specific ability tags and specific buffs that apply to those tags. Now, the big one that I'm going to harp on here is Asgardians. We got a mid-month Asgardian update. We actually had two Asgardian updates this year. We had the Thor, Valkyrie, and Loki update before KNULL, and then we got this one with Asgard Invasion, Sif, Heimdall, Hela, and yet not a single Asgardian ability was added, and none of the buffs are buffs that apply to all Asgardian allies. Now, I'm happy, on the other hand, that all of Sif's buffs apply to all combat types, or that her uniform ability applies to all allies, and you probably feel the same way, and you feel the same way about Hela. At the same time, it would be cool if maybe there were stronger buffs, or maybe if Heimdall had a buff or something like that, that instead of applying to all allies, maybe it had one buff for all allies, but specifically for Asgardian allies, it had more specific buffs. Now again, like I said, I do feel bad about this one because we did get a lot of new tags this year. We got the Black Order tag with specific Black Order buffs. We got the Eternals tag with a lot of specific Eternals buffs. We had the more Fantastic Four characters getting reworked with tags. You know, there were a lot of tags added this year. I just wish there were more. Coming in at number 9, speaking of the Eternals, no DRUIG, no PHASTOS, no AJAX, and no SPRITE. Again, this is sort of a, you know, I'm crying about my dinner, but I've got this amazing filet mignon steak combo waiting for me. Yes, we got 6 out of the 10 possible Eternals, but also, yes, we did not get 4 out of the 10 possible Eternals. We got more Eternals than any other game. I think the next closest game is Contest of Champions, who got Cersei and Icarus, so we're literally 3 times as many characters as the next closest game, which is triple, which is crazy. However, I do have to say a silent prayer for the homies who were hoping for DRUIG, hoping for PHASTOS, especially because they played such an integral role in the movie. They were so cool. And then to a lesser extent, SPRITE and AJAX. And the thing with the Eternals is they're all really cool in their own unique way, and they have basically very unique power sets, which I'm sure as a longtime Marvel Future Fight fan, you and I could both enjoy and appreciate it, and, you know, imagine how cool they would look in game. At number 8, we have the plight of the speed types. ELSA, Bloodstone, and NIGHTCRAWLER are the only 2 transcended characters who have gotten their transcendence with either no uniform coming to them this year, or, well, ELSA was last year, but she sort of represents the same issue. Characters that basically have been left behind because their transcendence did nothing for them, and their latest uniform also did nothing for them. I'm holding out that ELSA will be off of this list, so basically this would just be, number 8 would just be NIGHTCRAWLER, and NIGHTCRAWLER is really the best example of this because he got a uniform this year and it did nothing for him to basically justify the transcendence, which is not really good enough. We have, however, seen the devs fix this, so this is at number 8 because it does affect a couple of different characters, but I have a lot of optimism and hope that they're going to fix this. You know, they fixed Silk, they fixed Heimdall, they fixed Sif. They've been really going back and fixing up those cracks and those, you know, broken dream characters. So hopefully they will be fixed, and hopefully this won't be an issue at all moving forward, because we really shouldn't be at this point getting transcended characters without new uniforms or existing upgrades to the base kit that bring them up to speed with 2021 standards. I'm not saying NIGHTCRAWLER has to be an epic OP Omega God, but they have to function. And if whales are going all in on NIGHTCRAWLER, shout out to Verdict, and still reporting subpar results. That's just not acceptable in 2021. Speaking of subpar buffs in 2021, at number 7, I think one of the biggest disappointments character-wise, and I didn't want to make this whole list all about characters, so I picked specific ones that were really important. Black Panther, especially with the passing of Chadwick Boseman not that long ago, RIP champion. It just hurts, man. It just hurts that he's so bad, and he's basically been bad for the whole time he's been in the game. He had a very brief blip of power right before tier 3s got introduced, and that was essentially it. And yeah, I'm being a bit harsh on him. Like, this uniform is not terrible. He's not the worst tier 3 in the game. He might not even be top 5 worst. But the fact that he might not be top 5 worst means that he might be top 5 worst. And that is, in my opinion, a big disappointment. And hopefully the next time Marvel gives him a uniform, they knock it out of the park. This is a situation, I know I just said with Nightcrawler that he doesn't need to be OP. This is a situation where I believe you have to make up. I think you have to make up for past mistakes, and his 4th uniform and his 5th overall look cannot be mid-tier. It cannot be pretty good. It has to be outstanding. At number 6, the last pair of characters that I'm going to be picking on here that were disappointments in 2021, but I really do need to mention WENWU and KATY from the Shang-Chi update. Now, I understand that Marvel has a certain amount of control over the updates, and that Netmarble really has to present the updates in a way that is going to be popular for fans, and so maybe there wasn't as much of a justification, or there wasn't as much hype to explain why, KATY gets a Transcendence, maybe WENWU gets a tier 3, and Shang-Chi gets a tier 3, but at some point, at one point or another, the devs and Netmarble have to make peace with and explain to the Marvel execs and Danny Koo and all these guys that they can't keep releasing characters, A, without a uniform, and B, without a uniform, but more importantly, A, without a tier 3 or Transcendence. We're just so far past the days of characters being good and being worthwhile just at tier 2 with no uniform, unless they're completely free. So KATY sort of gets a pass here. She kind of gets a pass. WENWU absolutely does not. And the most heartbreaking thing and the most disappointing thing about this is not how cool he is and how cool Tony Leung is in the movie, because he's like a martial arts god, but from a gameplay point of view, they had such a cool opportunity with his leadership, and they could have really done something special. The first leadership in the game that has a proper heal that you give to all villain allies. This is very rare. Blade is basically the only other one that provides a healing ability on a leadership ability to a large subsect of characters, all villain allies. It's not like Jessica Jones's passive buff that just applies to 3 other characters. We're talking, 100 characters this applies to, maybe 100 characters if there's that many villains in the game. That's huge. And I feel like the devs really fumbled it here. I'm not sure if it's the devs' fault. I'm not sure if it's Marvel's fault here, but somebody along the way fumbled it, because these characters are just not going to be used by the majority of players. Like, KATY will be used as a free-to-play, low-budget, high-power character who is a stepping stone to build your account at the beginning. Sure, she's great for that. But beyond that, right, any veteran players, any long-time players, any players looking for high-power level characters, they might not even build KATY, right? They might just build her for the other rewards that you get in the Shang-Chi Legendary Battle. And then on the other hand, 99.9% of players are going to completely ignore WENWU because he's not even free anymore. And basically his only value here, I realize all of his skills have guard break, but his only value here is for very hardcore Alliance Conquest players. And that really does a disservice to this character and what this character represents and how cool this character is. And I really feel like they dropped the ball with this one. And this was, especially for me personally, I know for the community it was a disappointment, but for me personally it was a disappointment. And you could also tag in the absence of Xialing, Shang-Chi's sister, with the third empty choose a character spot there. That should have been Shang-Chi's sister's spot. Coming in at number 5, we have no year-long Stark stash. This one I did not get to experience last year, so I just had to go based on the community's reaction, but I know a lot of players were hoping and looking for Black Friday to bring around another year-long Stark stash. For those of you that don't know what happened, there was a Stark stash last year for Black Friday, and it was just a little bit more expensive than the regular Stark stash. I believe it was like $1 more, very low. and it would give you 15 crystals every single day. Now, yeah, that seems like a small amount of crystals, right? People are upset about 15 crystals, but if you multiply 15, because it was a year-long subscription, if you multiply 15 by 365, you get 5,475 crystals. Now, on the one hand, from a marketing perspective, I can understand why maybe Netmarble didn't want to give away 5,500 crystals for $5. On the other hand, why didn't they want to give away 5,500 crystals for $5? It's fine. It's only a once-a-year type thing. And the thing is, with the year-long Stark Stash, it doesn't come back again. Like it's a once-a-year subscription, so you can only buy it once a year. Like the regular Stark Stash, it's a monthly subscription, but you can buy it and then take a month off, take 6 months off, whatever, and come back. But with the year-long Stark Stash, you only have a very small window of time to buy it, which plays into FOMO and plays into psychology. And I would imagine it works in favor of it works in favor of the marketers, and it works in favor of the game making more money. So I'm not really sure. This one's a bit of a head scratcher for me. Was it possibly too much value? I guess. Could they have brought in another version of it and maybe said, you know, to the community, listen, we know last year's year-long Stark Stash was really popular, but it wasn't really economically feasible. So we're gonna bring it back, but this time it's only gonna give you 10 crystals a day instead of 15. That's still 3,600 crystals for $5. That's still 1.5 times a Stark Stash. So yeah, I don't know what happened there, but I do know a lot of players were hoping to see that again, and so I do think that is a big disappointment for this year, 2021. The next big disappointment at number 4 has to be no meaningful updates to PvP in terms of the gameplay or the rewards for 99% of players. And I think I mentioned PvP here because we now have a lot more PvP game modes that are taken pretty seriously. Like you have Timeline Battle, you have Danger Room Extreme competition between players for top ranks, you have Alliance Conquest, and yet an Alliance Tournament for years now, and yet nothing meaningful has really happened to any of these game modes. And I say that because we have gotten meaningful upgrades to World Boss recently. We got 2 brand new game modes in Timeline Survival and Dimension Rift, which are both in the challenge tab. We got brand new Epic Quest, the dispatch missions. They've done a lot of work on the PvE side of things, and I feel like they've really neglected the PvP side of things. That's one of my biggest, harshest criticisms for the devs, is really refusal to try anything for PvP. It's fine if they were trying things and things weren't working, and so they were more conservative about it, but they really have so few attempts on the board, right? I know you're gonna miss 100% of the shots that you miss, but you're also gonna miss 100% of the shots that you don't take, right? If you don't shoot, you can't score. So I'm not really sure what the devs' mindset is here. Like, if we don't touch PvP, maybe the players will just forget about it. That is not correct. So hopefully the devs wake up and realize that they need to, like a lot more game modes, for example, have been added to the challenge tab and taken away over the years. Alliance Raid, Villain Siege. There's so many, right? I just named 2, but there's like 5 or 6. How many game modes have been removed from Arena? None. Because the devs don't add that many, and when they do, they're so timid and unsure about themselves, and they barely make changes to these game modes. Alliance Conquest got like 2 changes in 3 years. Danger Room literally still says beta test. That tells you everything you need to know about how timid and afraid the devs are to try new things. So I really think it's a finger painting exercise. The devs just need to get their hands dirty and really tinker and re-tinker and re-tinker, and just throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what sticks as far as PvP goes, because some change, especially in a almost 7-year-old mobile game, some change is better than no change. 100% is my opinion. But hopefully, but maybe you share and have different opinions. So let me know down below in the comments. Moving into the top 3, I think the third biggest disappointment of 2021, and it could be some players' biggest disappointments, is the humongous lack of X-Men and Mutant updates. We only got 1 full X-Men update, and that was for Rogue, Gambit, and Cable. And then on top of that, we had the little sprinklings of a Professor X uniform and then a Wolverine uniform. But that is it. You can literally count on one hand, if you exclude Nightcrawler, how many characters got uniforms this year that were mutants. Professor X, Rogue, Mr. X, Wolverine, Gambit, and Cable. That's it. I may be missing one, but it's a really, really, really small list, and it really shouldn't be. There's tons of mutant characters in the game already, so it's not even about adding new characters, it's just about existing characters not getting any kind of rework. And I'm not really sure what the holdup is, but I would be very curious to hear from the devs in a dev note why it is that mutants have been so heavily neglected. Is it because the perception of the players and the perception of the community is that these updates are greedy and cash grabby? Is it that mutant updates just don't make much money for them? I don't really know. Is it a mandate from Marvel? Like, I can't really figure it out personally. Mutants are being added in other games, in other Marvel games, so I don't think it's that either. So I'm not really sure, but I would definitely love an answer. And the runner-up for biggest disappointment in 2021 in Marvel Future Fight, in my opinion, is the lack of a follow-up World Boss Legend after KNULL and MEPHISTO. I cannot tell you how important these two pieces of content have been for Marvel Future Fight. I could literally feel and see and smell the excitement from players when KNULL was introduced, first as a boss and then later as a playable character, and then the exact same hype just boiled over for MEPHISTO. And then that was pretty much it. You know, if you go 2 for 2, right, if you're going 2 for 2, you're like, I'm going 3 for 3. You're like, why not, right? You're 2 for 2, man. You're batting 100 on 2 hits, and then nothing, you know, nothing. And yeah, okay, I'm being a little bit greedy here, not acknowledging how difficult the process must be for designing a new boss, testing it out, making sure it works, making a new stage, making new music. You know, a game this old, it gets long in the tooth, the development team shrinks. I understand what's going on. Better developers are getting vultured and picked off to work on better, bigger, newer games like Marvel Future Revolution, what have you. Yeah, I get that. But like this was, you know, morphine. Not morphine. This is like adrenaline to someone having an anaphylactic reaction. Like this maybe a bit morbid on the examples there, but this literally breathed new life into the game. I cannot stress maybe one of the most important pieces of content added to this game ever, and they just stopped, man. Where listen, you can get rid of these bosses. You can, trust me, you can get rid of 2 of these bosses and add a world boss legend, and then get rid of these 2 bosses and add another world boss legend, and the community will thank you. Less can actually be a lot more. I'm not saying they should do that. I'm just saying I really don't understand why we're not getting more world boss legends, and I really hope we get 2 more or more than 2 more in the following year. Which means at number 1 for the biggest disappointment in Marvel Future Fight of this year, I have selected Timeline Survival. Now, Timeline Survival came out and it was hyped as a brand new game mode because it was the first new game mode that they introduced after Dispatch and after MEPHISTO World Boss Legend, which were 2 banger game modes. So basically at that point, up until Timeline Survival, MFF had been 3 for 3 with new game mode features. KNULL, then MEPHISTO, then Dispatch. So we're like, man, these guys are gonna go 4 for 4. This is gonna be amazing. And then the music stopped. Timeline Survival was definitely not what the devs expected it to be, and I would honestly say it's not what the players expected it to be either. And the thing that pains me the most about Timeline Survival as such a disappointment is how ambitious the devs were for it initially. The fact that they created this space that is completely new, they created all of these new effects, they did all of this stuff, only for this game mode to be met with complete apathy and rejection by the community. And I'm not saying that that's the community's fault. It's a combination of the community's fault and the devs' fault for not, you know, working more on this, or at least framing it in a different way or designing it differently. There are definitely pitfalls to this game mode that could still be addressed to make this game mode really fun. But I do think that this is a big disappointment because I'm just imagining all the hours that people sunk into this. I mean, even something which may seem simple, but even something as obvious as the people who drew these little buildings. Like, these little buildings are really cute. These landmarks, they're super cute. And it just sucks that someone spent time making these and then populating in the game, and now no one's gonna look at it because no one wants to play this game mode because it's poo-poo. It's not fun, it's tedious, and it drains more resources than it gives sometimes, especially with the drain on boost points. And then sort of the bugs that it has with not recognizing certain abilities that you use. Like, I really feel like conceptually, this is a 10 out of 10 game mode, but from concept to execution, there's a long bridge that you have to walk from a concept to the concept being executed as a live service part of the game. And I think somewhere along that bridge, a few too many of the planks fell out, and the bridge started to shake and stuff fell off, and we're left with, in my opinion, is an incomplete product. So I really hope the devs either axe timeline survival and just, you know, cut their losses, or they pour a lot more love into this game mode and make it what it's supposed to be, because I think this game mode has a lot of potential. It could be really fun. I genuinely want it to be part of my daily routine in Marvel Future Fight, but it's nowhere near. It's nowhere near. It's like my fifth, like, of the game modes that I'm not playing right now that I would play if I had time, it's not even in the top 3. Like, I would gladly play Dimension Rift and story mode fragment farming before I even touched timeline survival, and that tells you, for someone as hardcore as me, how much work that game mode needs. So yeah, unfortunately, no game is without criticism or without folly. Those were the top 10 disappointments of Marvel Future Fight in 2021, in my opinion. Now I want to hear from you. Hit me up down below with your comments on what your top 10 or maybe top 5 disappointments were if it's too long. Thank you so much for watching. Smash the like button if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.